The quiet power of everyday rituals for well-being are invisible threads in human life that weave our days into a single fabric, preventing us from falling apart, from being consumed by inner chaos. These threads are not grand achievements, not holidays, not fateful events, but tiny, everyday gestures repeated with steady rhythm. Someone brews their morning tea in a particular way. Someone reads 3 pages of a book each night. Someone cannot fall asleep without straightening the blanket or silently wishing goodnight to a loved one. These are rituals, and within them lies a quiet power, something missing from the noisy, accidental stream of outer life. The world teaches us to believe in great acts, in loud changes. We are told to be happy, you must accomplish something significant, build a career, move abroad, invent something new, leave a mark. Yet if one listens closely to the movement of being itself, one notices happiness is not always born in the fire of great decisions. More often, it blossoms in humble, everyday rituals performed without fanfare, but which give the soul a sense of home. The silence that resounds a ritual is not mere repetition. It is the music of silence, in which a person reaffirms, I am here, I live, my life has rhythm and meaning. When we perform ordinary actions with respect and attention, they cease to be empty motions and become anchors. Imagine a morning. Cup of coffee, nothing unusual in it, yet for someone, it is a small ceremony. Carefully choosing the mug, hearing the water boil, inhaling the fragrance of ground beans. The process itself whispers, the day has just begun, but already I have a moment in which I can be fully present. This is an act of affirming existence. The silence of ritual resounds within. It soothes the anxious mind, reminding the body that not everything is unpredictable, that there are islands of order. A person becomes less dependent on chaos because he knows, even in life's turmoil, there is a familiar circle of gestures that will preserve his inner wholeness every day. Life as sacred space, we often think the sacred lives far away, in temples, in mountains, in rare moments of revelation. But the power of ritual shows the opposite. The sacred can permeate the most ordinary life. Daily existence itself is the temple. We just rarely recognize it. If each morning begins with a short gratitude to the world, if each evening ends with the lighting of a candle or a silent reflection, then daily life ceases to be gray and faceless. It becomes filled with symbols. The ordinary acquires depth, as if another reality opens beneath it, quiet and solemn. A smile at the same hour for a child or a spouse. A note left on the bedside table, a warm drink before sleep. All these are rituals that turn the stream of days into a steady river, where one can rest by the shore. Rituals and memory, there is a wondrous connection. Rituals shape our memory, not only the kind that stores dates and events, but a deeper one, bodily, soulful, atmospheric. When we repeat an action, it inscribes itself into us and becomes part of our identity. We do not recall every day of childhood, but we often remember breakfasts, the smell of bread at grandmother's house, the quiet walks after school. These were rituals, and they became the foundation of our memory. Thanks to them, we feel we have a past, that our life does not dissolve into random fragments. In the same way, rituals shape the future. They give it predictability and thereby grant a sense of stability. When a person knows that tomorrow he will once again perform his small familiar gesture, the future no longer seems a frightening void. It becomes a continuation of today, less terrifying, more intimate. Rituals is the language of the soul. We are accustomed to thinking in words. But the human soul speaks in other ways, through images, symbols, and rhythms. This is why rituals resonate so deeply with our inner being. They do not require long explanations, nor strict logic. They are like poetry, brief, yet full of meaning. Lighting a candle in the evening is like silently saying, the day is complete, and I acknowledge its fullness with gratitude. Walking down a familiar street before bed is a dialogue with space that comforts more than any thought. The soul understands these gestures because they are closer to its own language than any rational construct. Therein lies their immense power. While the mind debates, worries, and doubts, the ritual simply acts. And in acting, it restores balance. Repetition as support the modern world teaches us that novelty is the highest value. We chase new experiences, unique events, and constantly updated content. Yet paradoxically, the human psyche cannot endure perpetual noise and change. Don't. We need repetition. Repetition is not an enemy, but a support. It creates a rhythm that serves as a framework for the psyche. Like a heartbeat or breath, the same at every moment. Yet it allows us to live. Rituals are the soul's breath. They repeat. Yet in repetition lies comfort. Just as a child needs to hear a lullaby over and over to sleep peacefully, adults need their own lullabies in the form of familiar actions. Without rituals, life resembles a chaotic kaleidoscope where each moment is disconnected. With rituals, a thread binds the episodes into a story. Small things. Great impact. There is a temptation to underestimate rituals, to think they are too small to make a difference. Yet upon reflection, it is the small that creates the great. Mountains are made of tiny stones, oceans of drops, symphonies of notes. Likewise, well-being is built not from a single grand act, but from hundreds of humble, unnoticed repetitions. A morning stretch, a short journal entry, a glass of water upon waking, a greeting to a neighbor, all are mosaic pieces forming inner well-being. Those who ignore the small are forced to seek support in rare, unpredictable grand events. But these occur infrequently. The small is always near, and therefore it quietly empowers. Body and ritual is not only the soul, but the body responds to repetition. The body has memory and thrives on habitual cycles. When we perform rituals, the body receives the signal. All is well, life is predictable, you may relax. For example, washing the face in the evening is not just hygiene. It is a bodily sin. Rest approaches, you may slow down. Morning stretches are not just movement. They say, activity begins, you are ready. Rituals help align body and soul. Often we live in dissonance. The mind is anxious, the body tense. Ritual unites them in a single act. Rituals and time is another dimension we experience with tension. We feel it as a fleeting flow, slipping through our fingers. Often this causes anxiety. Days fly by, years disappear, and we feel inaned. Rituals help us experience time differently. They structure it like marks on a clock. Through rituals, we feel that time is not merely passing, it is lived. They also introduce cyclicality. In a world obsessed with linear acceleration, rituals remind us that life is circular, allowing return, repetition, and rest. Solitude and rituals. Many fear solitude, imagining it as emptiness, a lack of communication, a threat. Transform solitude into a space of strength. When a person has personal rituals, he is not truly alone. He is in dialogue with his inner world, memories, and symbols. He can live in conversation with himself, evening journaling, or morning self-reflection questions. How are you today? Create bridges connecting a person with their own soul. These bridges sustain even when external companions are absent. Solitude becomes not emptiness, but a silence filled with inner presence. Rituals and relationships. Rituals are not only bridges to ourselves, but also the fabric from which human connections are woven. We rarely notice it, but relationships are sustained not only by feelings and words, but also by repeated actions. Family dinners, evening goodnight wishes, watching a movie together on Sundays, celebrating life milestones, all of these are rituals. When they disappear, relationships become fragile. People may perceive events differently, argue, even drift apart. Yet as long as shared rituals exist, there remains a space where they can meet again. That is why traditions are so essential. They allow bonds not to dissolve into chaos. Small rituals and love. The role of small rituals is especially powerful. It could be a particular phrase partners exchange when greeting each other, a small gesture of care, or a familiar rhythm of hugs. Love thrives not only on passion and new experiences, but also on predictable repetitions that create a sense of home. When one person knows that the other will smile every morning or ask in the evening, "How was your day?" a deep-seated security emerges within the relationship. This sense of security is well-being in relationships. It is not built on grand declarations, but on the quiet power of rituals and society. From a broader perspective, society as a whole relies on rituals, greeting someone, expressing thanks, marking life transitions. These are all ritual forms. Without them, the world becomes chaotic and unpredictable. Rituals provide structure to social life. They create a rhythm that makes human behavior understandable to one another. Even a handshake or a nod is a way of saying, "I acknowledge you, I see you." In modern society, many old rituals have faded. New ones emerge in their place. Texting, greetings, virtual cards, office gatherings. What matters is not the form, but that these actions create a consistent rhythm of communication and recognize the value of others. Rituals and inner order. One of the greatest powers of rituals is their ability to bring order within. The human mind tends toward chaos. Thoughts scatter, emotions fluctuate, desires conflict. A ritual acts as a frame. It establishes a form into which chaotic content can be placed. Even a simple habit of starting the day with a breath exercise or a brief meditation sets the mind, like tuning an instrument before playing. The beauty of ritual is that it does not require us to consciously construct order. It is the order. Thus, it frees energy for creativity, work, and interaction. Rituals. As a source of energy, there is an illusion that rituals consume time. In truth, they restore it. They energize because they remove inner fluctuations and anxiety. A person with rituals expends less effort combating uncertainty. They are confident that there are predictable islands in their day. Thus, they retain energy for what truly matters. It is like breathing while swimming. The water may be turbulent, but if the swimmer knows when and how to inhale, they will not drown. Rituals are the breaths in the ocean of life. The hidden beauty of rituals have an aesthetic dimension. Their beauty lies in simplicity and repetition, in their capacity to turn randomness into form. Lighting a candle, placing a cup on the table, opening a book at night, these movements possess an inner harmony. In them, a person becomes an artist of their life. The beauty of ritual is subtle, quiet, like moonlight on water. Yet this beauty nourishes the soul, making it gentle and resilient. Rituals as a bridge between worlds. In many cultures, rituals were seen as a way to connect the earthly and the spiritual. Even without religious contexts, rituals create a feeling of connecting different layers of reality. When one performs a small action mindfully, they unite the outer and inner worlds. Life ceases to be mere chance. It becomes symbolic. And in this, symbolism emerges a sense of meaning. Meaning is well-being, not pleasure, not achievement, but quiet certainty. My life is filled with significance. Rituals help one sense this significance. Rituals and resilience in the face of change. Life does not stand still. Everything changes. Work, relationships, health, even internal states. Often, change is the source of anxiety. Feels the ground slipping away. Familiar markers collapsing, yet rituals can become the roots that hold the tree steady during a storm. Even if everything around changes, if a person preserves their small gestures, they maintain a sense of continuity. Think of elders who still tie their scarves, brew tea, or feed birds in the morning. Their lives may transform drastically, but rituals help them remain grounded. This is why they often possess deeper inner stability than many young people chasing constant novelty. Rituals as an act of freedom. At first glance, rituals may seem restrictive. Why must I do the same thing repeatedly? Yet paradoxically, repetition births freedom. When one consciously chooses a ritual, they assert authority over time and circumstances. They declare, yes, the world is chaotic, but I have islands of order that depend solely on me. This is true freedom, not the destruction of all forms, but the creation of one's own form in which to live. Rituals and creativity. Some fear that rituals make life monotonous, depriving it of novelty. Reality, they are the gateway to creativity. Creativity requires energy and inner calm. If the mind is immersed in chaos, constantly struggling with uncertainty, true creation becomes difficult. Rituals relieve this burden. They provide a foundation on which spontaneity can flourish. Artists, writers, and musicians have always maintained rituals. Some wrote only in the morning, others lit a candle before work, some wore special clothing. These rituals helped them enter a state of flow. A ritual does not suppress novelty, it generates it. By freeing internal energy, it allows genuine flight. Rituals and gratitude. One of the most powerful effects of rituals is awakening gratitude. When we pause to perform a habitual action with attention, we notice details that otherwise escape us. In the rush, a sip of water becomes a gift. The morning light, a miracle. Loved one's smile, a blessing. Gratitude forms the foundation of well-being. It shifts attention from what we lack to what we possess. Rituals remind us daily of this wealth. Rituals and mortality. The topic of death often evokes fear, yet rituals help us come to terms with it. In many cultures, rituals accompanied people through transitions. Birth, marriage, death. They transformed the chaos of life and death into a symbolic order. For the modern individual, personal rituals also offer reconciliation with finitude. By performing small, conscious actions daily, we sense that life is meaningful right now. Even its end ceases to be emptiness, it becomes part of a larger rhythm. Practicing small rituals, reflection alone is not enough. Practice matters. What rituals can anyone incorporate into daily life? Morning greeting of the new day, a glass of water, a smile in the mirror, a brief expression of gratitude, evening reflection, a few lines in a journal, lighting a candle, soft music. Body care rituals, a walk at the same time daily. Breathing exercises, a tea break. Relationship rituals, daily supportive words to a loved one. Shared meals, small gestures of care. Silence rituals, a few minutes without phones. Brief meditation, sky watching. The key is not quantity or complexity, but attention and repetition. Let the act be simple but meaningful. The philosophy of quiet power. When we hear the word power, we often imagine something loud, forceful, commanding. Yet there is another kind of power, quiet, gentle, constant. This is the power of rituals. It does not break walls or overthrow mountains, but it permeates life, preventing it from fragmenting, making it whole. This unseen force is felt from within as deep calm. It is this power that cultivates genuine well-being, not dependent on external success or circumstances, but living inside. Supporting us in any situation. Conclusion: everyday rituals are the soul's breath. They require little, only attention and repetition, yet they connect us with ourselves, others, the world. In time within them lies a quiet power, one that transforms life from chaotic to meaningful, from random to whole. And if we listen closely, we realize that well-being is not a grand celebration or a rare pinnacle. It is the morning cup of tea taken at the usual hour. It's a word spoken to a loved one, a gesture repeated day after day. The quiet power of rituals does not change the world. It changes our perception of it, turning chaos into home, and within that home, we finally find what we have been seeking: simple, profound, quiet happiness.